Good evening. Welcome to the Vortex Sarasota Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. Got a great guest lined up for us tonight. But before I introduce my guest, I'd like to talk with you a little bit about Sarasota and the kind of area that we have here. Our studio is located on the if you're from the Sarasota area, we're on the corner of Osprey Avenue and Siesta Drive. We're 3 miles from the beach. It's just down the road here a bit. Siesta Beach is made up of, actually Harvard University ran some tests, and the sand there is 99% crystal quartz. That may not seem to mean too much, but it's hugely important in that crystal quartz is a power stone, and many things happen because of it. Healing, it transmits energy, transmits vibrations that are all very positive. And if you've been here long, you know that we're kind of protected during the hurricane season, which is pretty interesting. And I'm quite sure that the geography around here and the crystal quartz and what goes on above us kind of diverts those hurricanes around us. I think the last time anything of any consequence happened here was Hurricane Donna, which was way back in the 1960s. As a result of this, the influx of healers and people who are in the consciousness evolution movement, or the transformation movement, if you will, really are here in great numbers. You could go to many other states, many other cities, and not have a tenth or even a 20th of the kinds of numbers we have here in that kind of people. There's a big recovery community here for drugs and alcohol, which is highly spiritual, all spiritually based kinds of things. So that's the biggest reason for this show, was to make you aware Sarasota's really been kind of a hidden spiritual mecca, if you will. And I'll be bringing you the voices of the local community here. My guest tonight is Tanya Jopson. Tanya's written a couple of books, one of which is Higher Vibrational Spirituality. And she has a series of 4 books. 2 are completed. One is in the editing room now, and the other's being written almost as we speak. And so I'll introduce you to Tanya Jopson. Welcome, Tanya.
Thank you.
I am really pleased that you're here tonight.
Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you know, you're a good writer, and I really appreciate the work that you've done. You know, I'm convinced that we are in a shift, a transformational shift, and I don't think that can be stopped at this point. It's been going on a long time. I do think that it's not going to be, it won't be so obvious that the shift was there. You know, those of us who have been involved with it will know that it's here. And a lot of people are going to need to learn how to live in this new way. They need to learn that right now. Your books really speak to that. And you do workshops and that kind of thing, so it's fantastic. I think that what I'd like to do is talk a bit about you and get some background on you and where you come from, what you were doing. And do you still work at the Sarasota Memorial?
Oh no,
that was a while. You were a head chef there?
I was the executive chef.
Executive chef, right now.
First female executive chef.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that's quite a field. Yeah, that's pretty fast-paced. So you're from London?
Originally,
England.
I was born in London and lived on the west coast of Ireland in a small town called Westport, County Mayo. It's and we lived in, it was kind of like the ruins of a castle.
Really?
So we lived in that, and so it was a very spiritual type place there with metaphysical activity going on.
Right.
But as a young child in Ireland, I did experience or come across astral projection. And the curious thing about coming across astral projection was I came across the book in a Catholic bookshop.
Really?
And, you know, it's not the type of book that you would normally find in a Catholic bookshop, but
No.
how it came to me at age 13 was a surprise. So it was something that I participated in and achieved, taking myself out of my body. And that was kind of like my first real sense that we are not just this physical body that we are. That there's a whole other dimension in existence that we're not tapping into, or
Absolutely.
we're not reaping the benefits of.
Right.
And so I lived on, you know, the west coast of Ireland, and then moved back to England, became a chef,
Before you go there, let me ask you some questions about your home there. Were there Druids? I mean, were you in that area?
Was it what?
Druids?
Druids?
The Druids, yes.
No, my
or
family...
any of the fairies kind of thing? Or was
but I wasn't aware of it.
Gotcha.
You know, what I was aware of living in Ireland was a sense of otherworld energy. And the biggest gift that I got from living in Ireland, but I didn't realize it until I was here in America, was the fact that when people started to tell a story, they would start the story, because I worked in a bar. We owned the local pub.
Okay.
And so the same characters came in day after day. And I was able to serve them, because families all work together in the same business. So I would be serving them. And I would just be aware and listening, but not really engaging with the people. So I would hear them coming and start to tell a story. And then the next time they'd come in, they'd start to tell the same story, but when I would clue back into it, it was they had somehow altered that story. And so this went on, and it wasn't till later in life that I realized that we actually have a story to our own life, and we don't have to finish it the same as everyone's expecting each time.
Absolutely.
You know, we can change the story any time we want, you know, at any point. And so for me, that was such an empowering thing that I recognized that they were doing that. The storytellers in Ireland, they don't tell it from a book, they tell it from, you know, their memory, or from their free spirit.
Sure.
And wherever the mood takes them, how many Guinnesses they've had, that story will change.
Well, absolutely. Mine always did. So let me ask you, I know you had kind of an abusive childhood.
Yes, yes.
So did your astral travel, was that a result of that, trying to escape that?
Absolutely. It was like the biggest relief I had from the pressures of being, I couldn't look the right way, I couldn't speak the right way. In fact, I was a child that stopped talking for many years, because whatever I said, it wasn't right.
Right.
And there was a punishment for doing it anyway, so you just quit doing. And so astral projection was a huge gift for me to know that physical reality can go on, but I don't have to be affected by it.
Absolutely.
The me who is within is not that.
Well, was your first experience, did it happen kind of like accidentally?
Oh,
or
no.
did you purposely, because of this book, try and...
I had this book, and it was my lifeline, and my sister was looking at me like, what are you doing?
Oh, I'm sure she was.
Yeah, she was, but I religiously just went in there, and whatever the book was saying, that's what I was doing. And then one day I was above the wardrobe. We have big heavy furniture in Ireland called a wardrobe, where you put your clothes, and I was above the wardrobe looking at myself laying on the bedroom floor where I'd left myself. And it was such a liberating, freeing experience. And I think for a child that was abused, it was an empowerment.
Oh, absolutely.
Empowerment, yeah.
Yeah, a way to escape the abuse.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty amazing. So how old were you when you left there?
How old was I when I left Ireland?
Ireland.
I was 16.
Okay.
16. And then when I went back to England, it was like a total shift in reality, and I forgot all about astral projection. It just never came across the sea, the Irish Sea, to England. It never came. And it wasn't until years and years later in America that I started to use that talent again.
Right.
But deliberately to travel across the world.
Well, that's interesting. Why do you think that it stopped? Was it the abuse stopped? Because as I know a little of your story, you still kind of found yourself in some abusive spots.
No, the abuse didn't stop.
Right.
The different external reality that I had to cope with drew me into it. You see, as a child, I didn't know that I could actually pick and choose what to engage my energy in. You
Right.
don't know that as a child. Nobody teaches you that.
They sure
And
don't.
so I was sucked into, hey, all-girls school and all other issues that came along, and I totally forgot about that because of the coping of what I was doing age 16. And by that time, I was planning my escape.
You
I
bet.
was planning it for a whole year. I had a suitcase packed, and my goal was to leave on my 18th birthday, and that's what I did.
And you left by yourself?
Yes, I threw the key in the door, got in a taxi, and I went to a friend's house she told me that I could stay there.
Right.
But she forgot to tell her mother that she invited me there. So when
so
I
that
got
didn't
there,
last.
the mother said, okay, you got 2 weeks to find a place. Well, that was a shock, but I found a place, you know.
So if I recall, you ended up in a relationship somewhere around that time? Or was it?
No, that was when I came to America.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
in America.
Yeah.
So how long did you live there in England then?
I was 24 when I came to America.
Okay, so, and you, what did you do there in England?
In England, after I left home, I just actually, I moved to London and, you know, went to nightclubs and enjoyed life, worked in...
Had a good time?
Yeah, I was a chef. I was a
Right.
qualified chef, and so I worked in some very prestigious places in London. I actually did some catering for royalty.
Did you?
For the Queen and for Princess Anne, and I've had a phenomenal life. That was the time of my life where I traveled. I went to France, to Portugal, to Jamaica, all from London. I would just go travel all around the place, and I actually enjoyed life at that time. Then I came to America.
And things changed.
Got married.
Well, you know, that's part of when I was reading, you know, doing research on you. You led a very fascinating life. You're a very interesting person.
I would not change a thing. And I'm sure if it was back then and you said something, I would want everything to be different. But now there's nothing I would change about my life.
It's interesting how we get kind of led down this path, isn't it?
Yeah.
And some of the worst things that happened turned out to be some
The
of the best, huh?
yeah, the
Yeah.
best learning experience.
Of course, when you're in the middle of the worst, it
it doesn't.
you know, doesn't
I
feel
agree.
doesn't feel that way at all.
Yeah.
So you got married and came to the States. This was with an American?
Yeah,
that was in England at the time, or?
I met him in London. We were both working as chefs, and then I came here. The thing that I noticed throughout my movement through life is that the same abusive environment that I lived under as a child was, unbeknownst to me, imprinted within my energy body.
Yes.
And so whatever I engaged in, until I altered that vibration myself, was only ever feeding me back the same situation that I had experienced as a child.
Right.
And so, you know, I look at it now, and in the throes of experiencing an abusive relationship with someone, it's hard to look at it and say, I created that. That's
Very
me.
hard, very
you know,
hard.
we're so quick to say, it's your fault, you're wrong, you're this, you're that.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't until I realized I'm responsible for all of this creation that I'm making. Therefore, I am the one that can make the changes. Therefore, I release the person. They're not to blame for my reality or for me creating what I'm creating. You know, so it was after I you know, worked with human energy body for a while, and I worked in childcare for 13 years, that I started to see things in children. And I started to notice how children that are born, each generation has a higher vibrational frequency
right.
than the previous generation. And so they're quicker to pick up the use of a computer. It's
Yeah,
like,
oh, absolutely.
it's like genetically it's part of them now.
Right.
Because we're the ones giving birth to, we're using them. So genetically, it's an imprint in them.
Absolutely.
And so it's just like a natural thing. And now they're flipping phones and everything where it took us a long time to use it. But when you see that your own energy body and what you've taken on as a child is what is coming back to you later on in life, you know, then you can make the changes.
Then you get willing. There's a willingness because there's hope, right?
Oh, definitely.
You start to see, hey, this possibility I could actually have a really good life.
Right.
You know, you're talking about the energy with these young children. One of the things I started to watch was, if you go back to prior to the 50s, to the music,
Right.
and follow it through to Elvis Presley, you know, and he changed things. And then you keep bringing it on through, and you get, you know, Pink Floyd, and you get, you know, all, and to today's music, the vibrational level has increased
Right.
steadily through that whole thing.
Right.
And we have, you know, all these children come in, indigo children and the crystal children and all that kind of thing.
Right.
When you were working with children, were you aware of that?
I was aware of it when I took a break, because I actually
Right.
took a 7-year break.
Did you?
Between, I was a childcare provider here in Sarasota County for over 13 years. And so I did it for a while, then I took a 7-year break and worked for the school board, and then I went back to it.
Right.
And that was when I was like, oh my God, who are these children that are coming to me? Because they're so, it's like every single one of them was gifted. You
Right.
know, what it was they were doing things a whole lot faster. But what I also noticed was that if I tuned into them using mind to mind, that they were more aware of my presence and the fact that I was with them
Right.
in that way. You know, even if I was across the room, I didn't have to be physically close, but all I had to do was tune into their mind and my mind, and that the children would be calm.
So as soon as you placed your intent in their direction,
Yes.
they really hooked, you
Yes,
could hook right in with them.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I'm pretty aware of that in my own
Right.
life. It's like, so at that time, were you actively engaged in study of vibrations? And
Yes, that's when I put together a small program called the Feelings Map, and it was an emotional intelligence program for children. And I used it specifically for my daughter, but I also used it with the children in the childcare. And right now I'm working on a human energy body awareness for kids program.
Right.
And so, but yes, the second time I went back into childcare was when I started to present to the children that the highs and lows of the emotions, and that they can choose the emotions, how long to hold on to them,
Right.
and that then move into their thoughts, create, and it's amazing, absolutely so amazing, that every time you want to have show a child that their bad word is, or their, you know, that the way they're thinking about something is going to cause this, it will absolutely happen. The law will just enact itself, and you just say to the child, as much as they want to be frustrated, you know, that,
And they're like,
you're,
oh.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it happened. Like, for instance, with my daughter, my daughter has extreme manifesting abilities, and she can just think something, and
Poof.
there it will be. And I see this, and I mean, I'm so happy. Because that's like, I don't have to do so much to get her what she wants. She's
Right.
getting it herself.
Right.
But I also find other people are having difficulty. People my age are having difficulty. That why are the children not putting out as much effort as I did?
Yeah.
But they don't have to.
There's a jealousy too, isn't there?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've come across that. But they have a manifesting ability and create what they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you know, do you think it's because they're more exposed and more open to new kinds of things than our generation was, or your generation was? Because my generation is pretty closed down.
Right.
I mean, there's that segment of the population. When I first got into
when
I first got into this was like in 1970, and back then, everybody talked about this being of the devil. And, we got a bad rap on a whole lot of things, and much has changed since then.
Right.
So with these new kids, they're not, all this is kind of here now.
I feel that with the new children, with their vibration being a lot higher,
Right.
that it's a higher vibration will transmute anything that is of a low vibrating quality.
Right.
I don't like to say negative or positive because there's people for and against that.
Right.
But anything that's low vibrating, so fear and hatred and racism and all of those qualities that I define as low vibrating, the higher vibrational quality of a child coming in will transmute that. That's why when you have a parent and the child is born who's, say, a crystal kid,
Right.
and they have high vibrating energy, they actually cause to rise up within that parent that which cannot resonate at the higher vibration, and
Right.
cause it to be out in the open where things get transmuted and dealt with. Because most of our generation, we suppressed.
Absolutely.
We couldn't express what was going on.
Right.
And a lot of people are in relationships, they don't express truthfully to each other.
We don't talk.
Right, right, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
so a lot of suppression came along, but when you have a higher vibrating energy, that suppressed content is surfacing and is coming out. And so it's a good thing that the children can mirror to us what we can work on within ourselves, or release. Just release it, let it go.
Well,
You
they
don't
can
have
sure
to
bring it
carry
up, can't they?
burdens from 50 years ago.
Right.
you know?
Yeah, no, as a matter of fact, we can actually find a word of forgiveness and just drop the whole rock.
Yeah,
We don't need to
exactly.
carry that stuff around at all. I really like the way you talk about higher and lower vibrations as opposed to positive and negative.
Right,
It has a cleaner, more doable
right.
feeling to it, where positive and negative feels kind of like cut, boom.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
just the way it is, can't change.
Right.
So
Right.
very, very interesting. I will start thinking in those terms because of
Right.
that. Thank you. I've been tuned into. I'm so on the same page with you. It's like I'm convinced that that my vibration, my frequency, is set in place by my belief system,
Right.
and in order to change my frequency, I have to change a belief.
Exactly.
And that changes my viewpoint,
Right.
which changes my behavior,
Uh-huh.
which changes my experience. And boom,
Right, right.
and it just keeps kind of going from there.
Yes.
That's what I see in your book.
Yeah.
You have there's so much we could talk about, and a half
Right.
hour is not much time for sure. But you do workshops,
Yes, I do.
and you do those at Om Gaia.
Yes.
Om Gaia is the bookstore in Bradenton.
Bradenton.
Is that called Main Street there, or what is that called?
Yeah, I think it's
Old
12.
Main.
Yes, it's Old Main Street, but I think it's called 12th Street, 312 12th Street.
When's your next
West.
workshop?
The next workshop starts in March.
And they
the
can
5th.
sign up for it now just by contacting you or Om Gaia?
Contact the shop itself.
Shop Om Gaia,
Yeah.
okay. And your website is?
hvlcoach.com.
And I really suggest that you go and take a look at the site. I want to pitch her a book a little bit more, her series of books. We have actually 2 here now, and I've read these, and they're a good read, and there's a whole lot of powerful information here that, it can just change your whole life for you. So what's the cost of your workshop, and how long do they last?
The workshop is $85. It's a series of 5 Monday nights.
5 Monday nights.
Yeah,
From what I've read and what I see here, that's a bargain.
absolutely.
That's a bargain, because what you have can really help them and really help them change their life. I got an idea that there are people out there who could even maybe save their life. There's some people in some pretty sticky spots that need
Right.
to change their life,
Right.
pretty seriously change their life. We got about 5 or 6 minutes left. And there's so much we could go to. What I would like to do is just offer that time to you, like what's the most important thing that you could say to our viewers to help get them on that right vibration at this point? Or what would you like to talk about? Is something I've missed? I've got some other things I can bring up if it's...
Yes, I would like to talk about the fact that I found for people who are into religion or seeking that spiritual state,
Right.
that I was in a state of spiritual living. There was a point of, like for 3 years where I meditated for 5-6 hours a day.
Right.
And I only came out of that to go to work to put a roof over my head and go back to meditation. So being in a spiritualized place only, you can't function in the world. But when you come across the human energy body and you start to understand the layers of your existence, of the mental energy layer, the emotional, your perception of reality, or the veil, as they call it,
right.
before you transcend into your spiritual, formless self.
Right.
You can actually see the layers, how they fit each other, and how it moves through to creating a reality. That is so empowering, because you can then come across those beliefs that you have, and they start to surface when you do energy body clearings,
right.
which you can do on your emotions that are suppressed, or those beliefs that are outdated, not working anymore, or somebody else's that was imprinted on you as you grew up.
Right.
Those type of beliefs, to release them and let them go, that's when your higher self presence starts to come in,
right.
which is the higher vibrational content of who you are, which ultimately is unified with the creator of you. And once you do that, you kind of move through ascension process where you are one with the creator, at the frequency of the creator.
Right. So what I'm hearing, I think what I'm hearing is that we need to come to a point where we begin to recognize that there's something more.
Yes,
and
awareness.
And that oftentimes pain is what drives us to that.
Yes, it can.
You know,
Yeah.
so, for any viewers out there who are experiencing pain, I know it feels like the worst thing in the world for you, but if you really start to try to do something that about that, like coming to
well, the
workshops
will actually take you through the process that was mentioned in the book. The first workshop is about awareness.
Right.
The second workshop is about the energy body clearing.
Right.
The third workshop then moves into transformation, because after awareness and clearing, you are in transformation.
Right.
And so then as you're going through transformation, you become free of those boundaries, limits, and the illusion of reality that you think is real. And so, and from that point, you go on to authentically expressing. When you're in authentically expressing, that's when you are one with God.
Absolutely.
The Creator. So the workshop takes people through one subject a week, so that they can, and anybody is free to ask questions. I still answer my phone after the last workshop, and I let people know that I'm available for questions, after the workshop.
So you're not headed back to Ireland right after your workshop, you're going to stay here?
No, I'm not running. No.
Oh, that's great. Well, is there do you have a limited number of people that can be in your workshop? How does that work?
No, I don't think so. There may be a 20 people cutoff.
Right.
Because that would be a comfortable number for a Monday night.
And then do you have, for those who get involved and they start to work this thing, do you follow that up with any kind of mentoring or coaching or anything like that?
I do have a coaching program that I will be starting again. I like to have group coaching where people come on board at the same time. And so I did one a couple of years ago, but then I took a break for writing the books and getting everything all set up with that. But I'm due to start another group coaching, and I'm hoping to start it at the end of April. I put that on my website, that it's actually being reworked right now. Now that is a 90-day coaching, which takes people to the tipping point of transformation. That's
right.
The point of your energy movement where you're not going to go back. That it's like pushing the ball up the hill. There comes a point at the top where it's going to go down. It's going to go by itself. And so everything that we do in life, we have to give it some energy at the beginning,
right,
to grow the momentum and keep it going, and then suddenly everything that we have in our reality has a conscious life of its own, where it will take off from there.
It all kind of comes together, doesn't it?
Yes.
I've had a great time with you.
Well, thank you.
I'm sorry it went so quickly.
Oh, it's over already.
Yes, it's gone. The time is gone. We're going to have to sign off. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Be sure and come back next week, same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Be sure and have a great, in the meantime, be sure and have a great week, accentuate the positive, and have a fantastic week.